Antonio Pierce fired after 1.5 seasons, I guess, as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. I'll be honest, this one, I think I saw. Like this one, there was just not a lot of redeeming qualities to his season. I'm not sure I necessarily saw coming, but I'm not surprised about this one the way I was some other ones.
I'm a bit surprised only because when you go to the year before, he essentially almost led them to the playoffs with inept quarterback play, right? And he galvanized that team. We kind of saw this scenario play out with Rich Bisaccia, and they made the wrong decision and didn't hire him, right? And Josh McDaniels comes in, and he's let go, after like 4 or 5 games?
He's still on the payroll.
Exactly. So my thing is, for a team that was quote-unquote in money trouble, for you to just relinquish a guy that was a Raiders fan, grew up a Raiders fan. Obviously, you saw the end of the season, the team was still fighting for him. But he got the job with one hand tied behind his back. And fellas, we know this. We can speak about this. If you don't have the guy that's the correct signal caller, the guy under center, you have no chance to win in this league.
Yep.
You have no chance. Like, now there's cases where you have like the Mike Tomlins of the world that can elevate their team. But also, I would say a lot of people would say the Steelers roster is significantly better than the Raiders roster.
100%.
Right? Player for player. So when you look at it, and then you trade Devontae Adams, right? Now Jacoby Myers is your number one guy. Brock Bowers, I don't know if anybody saw that happening. We knew he was a really good player. But you talk about a guy that's going to be an all-pro his rookie year and developed in that system. Again, with inept quarterback play, I would just liken it to this. Antonio Pierce got everybody to buy in. They continued to fight. You never saw a team that quit any week. And I would have loved to see him actually get a real chance with a real quarterback on the center. And this is not me disrespecting the quarterbacks that were there, but like we just talked about,
they just all stack up with the good guys in the league.
And then just look at the.
It's not an indictment on them as human beings.
And then look at the AFC West, right? 3 teams make it to the playoffs. You got Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and then you had that perfect marriage between Bo Nix and Sean Payton. So that's essentially what Antonio Pierce is going up against week in and week out. And again, no disrespect to the players, but he has Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, and Desmond Ridder. Like, you didn't give him a fair shot. I thought it was utterly ridiculous that he got fired.
And I'm in agreement with you I'm in agreement a little bit with both of you guys. Like, I'm not surprised that he got fired.
Yeah, but it's ridiculous.
When you look at the body of work, it's not indicative of the talent that he was dealing with.
Correct.
Or it is indicative of the talent he was dealing with.
Is, yeah.
And the quarterback situation, like you said, I mean, you are hamstrung from the very beginning. And if you close your eyes and imagine Antonio Pierce being there for another year and which quarterback they would draft or Tom Brady and that search party would go get, it's really interesting to think about some of those things you talked about being elevated even more. I mean, Myers gets even more production. Brock Bowers, I don't know how the hell you get better, but he gets even better.
Correct.
The offensive line, they began to invest in that. And I like
I was actually pretty solid.
I like their tackle.
Yes.
Colton Miller. They've got good players there, and they played hard. The only issue I have with this entire process is obviously the Raiders are completely over-leveraged in terms of what they owe coaches that are no longer coaches in that building. The name tag has been changed 4 times, and they're still paying the first guy.
Correct.
You should not lean on the opinions of your star players when it comes to these coaching firings, coaching hirings, coaching changes. Max Crosby, like myself when I played in Chicago, like so many other players around the league that have teams that are dealing with turmoil, spoke up in support of Antonio Pierce, even more than support. He was essentially like, if you guys mess this up and don't bring him back, you might have to trade me. And you kind of hold the whole building hostage, in my opinion, when there is a due process that should happen. When coach firings happen, coach hirings have to happen. There has to be a search. There has to be interviews. When you do that, you bastardize the entire process, in my opinion. And if the Raiders continue to do things of that nature, they will continue to be in the basement in regards to the financial situation, the success, and that coaching carousel that we see time and time again. And for Antonio Pierce, the film is out there. His players played hard until the very end. There will be another staff that will take him, and he will probably have another shot.
Correct.
While I don't think it's surprising, well, again, why I wasn't surprised, I was more not surprised because this is the Raiders that we're talking about. They have had 14 different head coaches since the year 2000.
Jeez.
And that's not even counting that John Gruden's been there twice since the year 2000. He's one of those 14. So it could be 15 because obviously he was two of them. And the fact that they're not in a position to get a better head coach right now. I talked about the Pats. They could maybe get the top dog with how good Drake May looked.
Correct.
And the fact that a guy wants to go to a place with the rookie quarterback.
And the cap money they got.
They don't have a quarterback, and they don't have the ability to go get a quarterback.
Correct.
So they're not in any better situation now than they were a year ago. If you're stacking up how good these openings are, they are either last or second to last. It's them and the Saints
For sure.
right now, just because of where they're at from a cap situation. And they spent a lot of money in free agency last year, and it didn't do diddly poo for this franchise. So I don't think they're going and getting a top name. They're not getting a Ben Johnson. They're not getting a Mike Vrabel. They're not in contention for them. So what are you doing firing Antonio Pierce?
Who does that fall on the swings and misses in free agency?
It's partly GM and coach. It depends if the GM has the power to bring in who they want, and the owner has to approve the payment. Right.
But with the Raiders, it's the owner. It's Mark Davis.
Yeah.
So that's why you are the Raiders and why they're one of the most inept franchises over the past 20 years since they went to the Super Bowl is because of ownership. It's not the GM necessarily.
I got a question for you guys. Do you think that, because we know there's a famous guy, the greatest of all time, he's got, a small part of ownership in the Raiders. Do you think his greatness and what he's done in this league, talking maybe to Mark Davis, had some sway on this decision? And maybe they're thinking, like you said, because it's not an attractive job on paper by any means, right? Because they did win those games, and now it's going to be really almost impossible for them to move up. Because when you look at the first three picks, all three of those teams need quarterbacks. And me and Mike have talked ad nauseum about how there's really only two guys that are going to probably go in the first round. Could this be a scenario where, because he has a personal relationship with Vrabel, he's telling Mark Davis, man, we could maybe get him. Again, if I'm Mike Vrabel, to your point, I'm looking at New England. I already got my quarterback of the future. I have 130 plus million in cap space, right? There are some pieces that couldn't be foundational pieces, but we have a boatload of money and we have the quarterback. When you have a boatload of money, you have the quarterback, you can build around the quarterback, right? So it's like, but with the Raiders, you don't have the quarterback. What are you going to do about the quarterback? And like Mike said, you're not in a position to take one of the top two guys. So is it going to be a bridge guy like Kirk Cousins? Do you maybe try to throw the bag at Sam Darnold? Like, that's the thing. I'm like, so where does Tom Brady fit in this scenario? Is this a scenario where he's telling Mark, maybe because I'm in it now, we can maybe lure one of those coaches into the Raiders?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think it starts with the fact that Tom Brady is used to excellence and he is used to doing things his way. I mean, the Patriots had a strength staff, but Tom had his own strength
Correct.
staff. Patriots had a kitchen. He had his own kitchen.
For sure.
So I would imagine that the immediacy in which he told Mark Davis that we're going to start fresh and clean house, clean kitchen, that had to be an ASAP type of conversation. And I think that starts with the head coach and it finishes with Tom Brady being involved in the scouting meetings, involved in the draft meetings, involved in everything. He wants to have his hands in everything.
Correct.
I would imagine. I mean, he's a quarterback for God's sake. These guys can't help themselves. But I think that it does start with the head coach. And even though Antonio Pierce, to the things that you were saying, has been a good head coach, Tom wants, in my opinion, he wants a clean house and to start fresh. And he doesn't want to wait around for another year.
What about also this, and this, you can tell me if this is crazy or not. Antonio Pierce was on the 07 Giants, right?
So I brought this up on a show yesterday. I know where you're going. I love where you're going because I'm like, maybe that is a little bit of...
Tom Brady is not one to not hold a grudge, right? Like he is a guy who...
I didn't even think
does not.
Oh, he stopped him from the perfect season.
He blemished it.
Yeah, he stopped him from the perfect season.
Yeah.
I thought about that too. I did it kiddingly.
That's
on the show, and I was like,
petty.
Let's not forget, Antonio Pierce stopped them from having the perfect season.
Yeah. Because oftentimes on the outside, fans, you're like, no teams make decisions based off of shit like that.
Oh, teams make
they 100%
all the time.
They 100%. All the shit behind closed doors is 100% emotion based. They're still humans.
That's a great point. And
conspiracy theories.
Yeah, we love those here. Yeah, that was great. That was great though.